Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our June Clear Up the Chaos. I wanted to visit with each of you. There's been a few changes that have taken place since our last Clear Up the Chaos. Michelle McCarter with Blakeman & Associates, she has taken another job. And so I'm pleased to introduce you to Stephanie Saeed with Blakeman & Associates. She's going to be assisting us each month with our Clear Up the Chaos, as well as when your needs arise. So if a need does arise, and if in the past you've contacted Michelle, Stephanie is going to be your new point of contact. So we're thrilled to have her. Welcome, Stephanie. And I know we have a long list of hot topics to jump in on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you for you to begin sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. So welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Stephanie. I've been with Blakeman for over 10 years. I'm the senior HR and DOT specialist here, so I can help with your DOT questions as well as your HR and safety related issues. We've got a lot of trending topics right now, and I already have a list going for next month. That's how quick things are rolling in our government right now. I guess we're going to start off with an overview of the trending topics. So there's a new permitless carry gun law in Texas. It's also known as constitutional carry. So we're going to address what employers can do, what their rights are in not allowing carry in the office, and what's the best practice if you are going to allow permitless carry. We are going to go over OSHA's new guidance. They just published brand new guidance on the recordability of employees that have adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine when an employer is requiring it. And the last topic we're going to go over is going to be the fact that Texas, and I know my slide says 23 other states, we're now at 24 other states, have opted out of the federal unemployment assistance program beginning towards the end of this month, and how that's going to affect businesses and hopefully an influx of people applying for positions. I know it's very hard to fill positions right now. It's hard to find motivated people that want to come to work when they're getting free money to sit at home. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the permitless gun carry. So if you currently have a weapons policy, what we want to look at is, are you allowing weapons on the premises? How are you handling the registration of the weapons with the employer? Are you running background checks, things of that nature? We recommend, if you are going to allow it, and it's not going to be for every place of employment. A lot of oil and gas, that have multiple site locations will allow, the head safety person or the foreman or supervisor to have a gun on premises in the event something does happen. A lot of companies who have long haul truckers are allowing those truck drivers to carry a weapon with them in their vehicle for protection purposes. They are staying overnight at, truck stops, just places off the side of the road that may not always be the safest environment, and they don't know what they're pulling into. So if you are an employer that is interested in allowing some type of carry in the workplace, even if you're going to allow them to carry it in their vehicle, if it's their personal vehicle, you don't have any say-so about it. As long as their vehicle's locked, they're complying with the law. So you can't say that somebody can't carry it in their personal vehicle. However, if they have a company vehicle, you can restrict that. If you are going to allow it, we recommend that the employee registers the make, model, and serial number with the employer. In the event that something does happen, you have that information readily available to give to any law enforcement or type authority figure that comes in needing it because something has happened in the workplace. We recommend background checks at a minimum every year, but at least best practice is going to be every 6 months, because if you are a convicted felon in the state of Texas, you cannot carry a weapon, or if you are facing felony charges or on probation of any type, you cannot carry a weapon. It is illegal. So by you running these background checks, it's going to have a twofold issue here. You will know if somebody is carrying when they should not be carrying. You will also know if somebody has a charge against them or a conviction that they never let you know about within the past 6 months or the past year from their last background check. So that's going to be a really important thing. As I stated, people can carry a weapon in their personal vehicle. You can require it to be out of sight, and you can require that the car be locked, the vehicle be locked at all times. And that's going to be, in my opinion, one of the safest ways to handle the situation, because I don't know of many workplaces where everybody in there needs to be allowed to carry a gun at any time. There's too much risk. You set it down, somebody steals it, you've got a disgruntled employee. The list of things that the what ifs is huge and it's ever evolving. One reason it is important, though, to possibly have 1 or 2 employees at a higher level allowed to carry, and this could be somebody with a military background that's familiar with weapons and goes to the range on a regular basis. We've seen an influx in the increase of workplace violence. That employee could go to specialized training on how to diffuse situations, but also be that person that is allowed to carry the weapon that could stop an active shooter situation in the workplace. And there is not any city or state across the US that is immune from this. It's happening everywhere. We see the news. It's unavoidable. There's no way to prevent it, but we can all be vigilant and with situational awareness and maybe having somebody on the job site that is allowed to carry in the event something happens. We do active shooter training as well and things of that nature, situational awareness, so that if you ever have something like this happen at your workplace, you would know how to handle it. So that is an option that we do have available. So do we have any questions before I move on to the vaccine?
I do have one question. Is there required signage under this new law, Stephanie?
So right now, the only way to completely ban a weapon from being carried in the workplace by using signage is having 30-5, the 30-6, and the 30-7 sign posted, all 3 of them. One says no guns, one says concealed carry allowed or not allowed, and one says open carry not allowed. And the open carry one came out after the CHL was changed to an LTC, which was a concealed handgun, to a license to carry. Now that there's no permit required at all, that's something that we have concern of. So right now the signage is the same. We're waiting for the state to come up with new signage. I don't even know if they will. They might continue giving the guidance to post all 3 signs if you're going to forbid weapons in the workplace completely. And keep in mind, those signs can't just be written on a piece of paper. I'm sure one of you have ever seen, you see an elderly person walk up with a quarter and they want to make sure that the letters are the size of a quarter, because if they're smaller than a quarter, it's not legal signage for the gun laws in Texas. So you always want to make sure that you're using the correct size lettering. And I believe it needs to be at least 1 inch tall letters, but all of that is going to be on the state of Texas website. And I believe at the end of this PowerPoint, I provided links to review and read more information on that.
Perfect, thank you. And if you'll just keep us abreast of if any of those signage changes do take place.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think
so the next one is very refreshing guidance that we've gotten from OSHA. We've had a lot of employers that didn't know, okay, my employee got sick. I don't know, she got sick from her coworker who has COVID, or maybe she went to the gas station and somebody coughed on her and she got COVID. So basically employees were trying to find a way to create reasonable doubt so that they would not have to report it as a work-related illness on the OSHA law, which if you are in any type of industry where to bid on jobs, they're looking at your EMR, they're looking at your TRIR, which is your total recordable incident rate, anything that you have to list on that OSHA log, it's going to be bad. You'll have a chance to explain it, but some companies won't even let you explain it. They're going to see that you have a TRIR that's twice the industry average, and they won't even want to do business with you. So what the government's done is they've said, if you require the vaccine in the workplace and somebody has an adverse reaction to the vaccine, you do not have to record it on your OSHA log through May of 2022. In May of 2022, they're going to come back and they're going to reevaluate that. But there's something else to keep in mind. Just because you mandate the vaccine and you don't have to record it on your OSHA log, nothing prevents an employee from turning around and suing you as the employer because they got sick, because the vaccine was mandated. And this is a big deal because they don't have anybody else to sue. The vaccine makers are completely exempt from any liability if there's any fatality, permanent disability, or just 1 day or 2 of adverse reactions to it. So an employee that has one, yeah, you don't have to record it on the OSHA log, but they can still turn around and sue you, and you have no protection. and there's no waiver that you can have them sign to hold you harmless from this. So that's a big thing to keep in mind if you are going to be requiring the vaccine. On that note, one of my topics next month is going to be the fact that yesterday, some of you guys may have heard the announcement, but Abbott announced he's going to sign an extension of a bill that he signed in April. This is going to make it basically illegal for an employer to ask for proof of vaccines or a vaccine passport card. So vaccine passport cards were already deemed illegal, unconstitutional in the state of Texas. They've taken it one step forward, whereas government agencies or anyone receiving government funding was not allowed to inquire. He's now extended it to private employers. So if you're one of the employers that's requiring a mask, if you're not vaccinated, and you don't have to wear a mask if you are vaccinated, keep in mind you can't make that inquiry anymore. So if somebody wants to volunteer that information, that's fine, but still be careful how you use it. You need to be careful how you store it, all of that. But we'll get into that next month, because it's gonna be huge for employers. And lastly, if you want to give incentives to employees that do want to go get the vaccine, you can do that. The EEOC gave clarification. The incentives can't be too much money. We feel that offering a couple hours off to get the vaccine itself is appropriate, of paid time off, not making them use their accrued PTO. Or if they do have an adverse reaction, allow them to take PTO to recover from that. But don't require them to use any of their own personal accrued PTO. But keep in mind, you cannot ask for proof anymore that they went and got the vaccine. So you would have to take it at their word. Or if they wanted to volunteer that information, that's fine, but you as the employer cannot ask that information. Once again, if they do provide that information voluntarily without you asking, you need to follow ADA record keeping requirements because it is private health information. We call it PHI. So, I mean, that's a good thing right there. It's great that the EEOC has clarified, because the Society for Human Resource Management asked them to clarify back in February, and it took them up until about 3 weeks ago to finally give clarification on that. So that'll be good.
So Stephanie, do you feel as though these laws would also be applied to the flu vaccine?
I would say there's going to be no inquiries for any vaccines. Employers previously never really made inquiries about who obtained the flu vaccine, unless you're in the healthcare industry and it's required in some areas. Some hospitals require it. But keep in mind what happened this week. Yesterday, 117 employees filed suit against Methodist Hospital Houston. They also all walked off the job. So there's now what's considered a class action lawsuit against Methodist because they required vaccines for all of their employees. And yesterday was a deadline for them to get the vaccine, or they were all going to be fired. So now they have a lawsuit. And now with what Abbott came out and said yesterday, this bolsters that lawsuit even more, because Abbott said an employer cannot require proof of the vaccine. And that's exactly what Methodist was doing. So if anything, Abbott has paved the way for Methodist to fail in this lawsuit, unless something else happens and new regulations come out. But I'm pretty sure the lawsuit will not be seen all the way through. You'll come out with a settlement with their employees. But that's how serious it is. Some people are so adamant against the vaccine that they were willing, one of their high-end CEOs actually stepped off the job and quit. And they quit 3 weeks ago before this lawsuit came out. But I mean, it's going to be something to follow in the news to see how the administrative law judges side, because we haven't seen any of these cases come to court yet. So we can't give any legal guidance on where the judges side. Are they more sympathetic to the employee, or are they more sympathetic to the employer? With the fact that our administration is very pro-employee, I have a feeling that employers are going to be on the losing end of this deal for anything related to employers requiring things of the employees that they don't think is safe, healthy, fair, or that could infringe on their rights under ADA or EEOC or FMLA or multiple other federal laws.
So even if it's a medical office or, you know, a doctor's office of some sort, they can't be justified in requiring the vaccination?
No, but they can justify the fact that masks will continue to be required during the pandemic, social distancing where applicable. I actually had a client this morning call, and he said is there a waiver I can get my customers that come in for medical treatment? It's an ENT office for the employees that don't wear masks that have been vaccinated. So we called and discussed it, and he goes, I'm not going to ask for proof of vaccination anymore. I said a good best practice would be if somebody is with a patient one-on-one, they always wear a mask. If they're not with patients, then you can make it their decision whether or not to wear a mask, or you can keep it as a company policy for now that everybody's required to wear masks.
So a medical organization is on this call with us, and one of their normal requirements is to track the shots and immunizations of their medical professionals, nurses, medical assistants, doctors. They don't mandate them, but they do keep track of them within their organization. Can you address that?
I would say that's probably going to need to be a practice that should no longer be followed. As I said, we need to wait and see where some of these cases come out by the administrative law judges and who they're siding with. I would say that just the COVID vaccine, they didn't say just COVID vaccine. They said you cannot inquire about vaccines. Now, there's certain vaccines that are required by federal law under OSHA and things like that in the workplace, and certain tests that have to be done. And obviously that's going to continue to be able to be tracked because of the risk that it puts patients at if they are exposed to it. We're talking more on the bloodborne pathogens end of things, tuberculosis, things of that nature. So those are going to be things that, as long as we have a federal law covering us, that's fine. But there's no federal law covering vaccine inquiries. So states right now can make their mind up where they want to sit on this. You know, you've got the governor of Florida that is leaning this way. You've got multiple other states leaning this way that have banned. Only 2 states have even allowed vaccine passports. All the rest have said, no, we're not going to do that. That is a violation of your constitutional right, or we're not really sure where we stand on the issue yet. We're going to wait and see what happens to Hawaii.
So if an organization has been providing gift cards or different incentives of that nature to promote getting the vaccine, should that be stopped immediately? How do you advise, if that's been put into place, how to correctly handle that moving forward?
So without further clarification, I would say that practice can continue. However, you're going to have to take the employee at face value. You can't then turn around and say, I need to see proof of that vaccine.
Okay.
So with you being banned from inquiring about it, you have to be driving and dropping them off at the, vaccine site. You're not really going to have much way of knowing whether or not they truly got it.
Okay. Thank you.
And we're still actually waiting to see how all of this is going to coincide with the extension of the Family First Coronavirus Act, where employers can still voluntarily participate in the tax credit, because they added 2 additional reasons. If you have an adverse action to the vaccine, or if you have taken time off to get the vaccine, those are qualified reasons for paid time off under the extension of the FFCRA, which is now just a tax credit. But in doing so, the documentation is requiring you to prove, or not prove, at least list the doctor where you went to go get your vaccine, things of that nature, so that they can then turn that into the IRS to justify monies paid out under that. When they file their 940s and 941s, when they tie them all together, they need to know what tax credit and how to justify that truly was a tax credit. So there we've got a conflict between new Texas regulations and federal law. So the IRS says that you need to provide that information. The employee needs to give you the name of the physician, things of that nature, for adverse reactions, or if they got the vaccine. But now Texas is saying, oh, you can't ask that information. So we still need more clarification on this. I haven't read all 500 pages of the actual law, so I'm waiting for an attorney to do that for me, and then we can interpret it from there and give best practice guidance.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sure all of y'all have had some issues with when you had to lay off employees or furlough them, and you're having a hard time getting them to come back. Or even if you have a job opening, you're having very limited people coming in applying for that job, and the people that are either way underqualified or just not quality applicants. Well, say you are a single mom and you've been furloughed, so you're getting unemployment, but you're also getting an additional $300 a week. You're also not having to pay for daycare for your child to be in daycare. So you are literally saving and possibly making more money by sitting at home. So that's one of the reasons why they're going to be ending the federal unemployment assistance. This is a big deal because there are so many employers out there. You could go down the road and there are hiring signs everywhere. People are just not getting applicants to come in because there is no incentive for them to get up and get out and get motivated and get a job when they're making more sitting at home doing nothing. This will be great for employers to get employees back to work. It will provide, assistance, incentive for employees, who are quality employees, but have just become, passive. I don't know if a lot of them are scared to come back to the workplace. That is a true issue too. So that's something to look at. But the Texas Workforce Commission has stated, if you give a valid offer of employment and it is turned down, that person is no longer eligible for unemployment benefits. So they have asked, if you provide a valid, offer of work and it is turned down, Texas Workforce Commission has a website, they have a phone number, that they want that reported to them because that person is no longer eligible. It's very easy to find if you literally type in unemployment assistance fraud Texas. It's going to pull up the email address, the website link, and a phone number that you could call. This will help other employers get their employees back to work, as well as you get employees back to work when they know they can't get away with it anymore. I know this isn't going to affect most of y'all, but this also includes the pandemic unemployment assistant. So anybody who's self-employed or an independent contractor or gig workers. Gig workers are going to be somebody who works for a hotshot company or Uber, and so their work fluctuates just depending on demand, day to day, hour to hour. So they were allowed to get some pandemic unemployment assistance. That's actually going away as well. So if you guys are having any problems restaffing the workplace, you can give us a call. We've got some strategies, that can help you get employees back in. You can look at incentives, but one thing that a lot of employers are doing, and it's causing animosity in the workplace among employees that have been loyal, they're rewarding sign-on bonuses to new employees, but they're not rewarding loyalty bonuses to the employees that stuck with them through the hard times. So that's something to think about. If you have an employee that's been working with you for 15 years and you go and you give somebody a $2,000 sign-on bonus because you're having a hard time getting welders, but this guy's been a dedicated welder for you, how do you think that would make him feel when he wasn't given any incentive for having stayed through the hard times? So we need to look at that and how we're treating employees. And yes, sign-on bonuses are completely legal, but we need to look at employee morale when we do things like that and how it affects the employees that have stuck there, through the hard times and were willing to come back to work as soon as they were needed. Any questions?
Feel free to keep those questions coming. You can send those via the chat box and I can relay those to Stephanie.
So I have some links here and you guys will get a copy of this PowerPoint so that you can read more on the permitless carry. If you need me to, I can send an email to Elizabeth with the signage that is currently utilized for people that do not want to have weapons in the workplace. But really, everybody should be pulling their weapons policy, reviewing it, reading it. We need to make sure it stays as up to date as possible and compliant with the current laws. So, there's going to be a lot of changes coming. There's going to be more clarification on the permitless carry, also known as constitutional carry. But we are in Texas, and Texas is a huge Second Amendment state. So I don't think this is going anywhere. So the best bet is for employers to start addressing this right away, getting a revised policy in place that covers them if they're not going to allow weapons, or covers them if they are going to allow weapons or allow weapons on a limited basis, depending on the title or the responsibilities of the employee. So the EEOC guidance, that's constantly evolving. We've had at least a dozen new EEO guidance documents that have come out since the pandemic started on what you can and can't do and ask. One of the things is a lot of companies are offering incentives to employees' family members to get vaccinated. That's a no-no. One of the reasons why is if that person cannot get vaccinated and they tell you that, or they tell you why, you now are privy to private health information, and it is possibly a GINA violation, which is the Genetic Information Protection and Employment Act. So we need to keep that in mind. Sorry, it muted me for some reason.
I muted you. No, you're good.
I don't know at what point I got muted. So if you're inquiring about family members and if they're getting vaccinated, that's a practice that you need to stop doing at this point in time. The EEOC has come out and also stated that that's a possible GINA violation, and that's genetic employment information. If you find out that that family member has some type of illness and it's something that could be hereditary, you now are privy to information that could, if you have any type of adverse action on an employee, write them up, terminate them for whatever reason, they can turn around and say, well, they discovered that, I have sickle cell syndrome or something that is, hereditary and a genetic disorder, and that was influencing your decision to terminate employment. The less an employer knows about your medical history, especially if it doesn't affect your ability to do your job, the better it is. So you don't want to know your employees' medical histories. You only want to know if they are on medication that affects their ability to safely do their job, such as operating heavy equipment, things of that nature. You don't want to ask anything else. If they need time off work and things of that nature, that's a separate conversation you would have, involving FMLA and ABA and an interactive conversation at that point in time. So with regards to the EEOC guidance, let's limit what we ask our employees about what's going on with their health.
Does an organization have to post a sign stating their gun policy for their organization?
If an employer or a building does not allow weapons inside, then they're not allowing guns at all, they're not allowing concealed carry, and they're not allowing permit carry, or now permitless carry. Yes, they have to have the signs.
But those signs are still in the process, is what I'm understanding.
We can still use the current signs until they come up with new signs, because they're going to have a new sign that mentions permitless carry. Because right now it's just concealed carry, permit carry, which is the LTC, and then there's just no guns at all. So if you have a no guns at all sign, you still need to have the other two signs.
Okay.
Because they may not necessarily know, they may think, well, I've got a permit, I can come in anyways with my weapon. And no, you can't. And if you are an establishment that gets funds from a government business, such as there was a big lawsuit against the Houston Zoo, they posted up signs stating no permit carry. Well, it's a violation. So they got a huge lawsuit filed against them because they were told that because they're a government entity, they have to follow the same rules as everybody else. They're not exempt from the rules. So they faced a daily fine for every day that they did not allow weapons to be carried in there. And we're talking people that are permitted. They've had the background check, they've been vetted, they had the proficiency test on the range, they took the class. It used to be an 8-hour class, now it's a 4-hour class. I believe now you can even take the class online. You can go around the corner and get your fingerprints done and run through the federal database. It's very easy to obtain it. So I'm not really sure. It's kind of unclear on what kind of vetting will be done, or if it's just going to be a free-for-all, letting anybody who wants to carry a weapon that's not a convicted felon and without a history of mental illness just buy a gun and carry it. I'm assuming that the people selling the guns, unless it's a private gun sale, will still be required to run the full background check because they will be liable if they sell a gun to somebody who should not have a gun sold to them. But as I said, this is all still coming out. I'm waiting on an attorney to read and interpret all of it so we can give more guidance on exactly what the law is stating.
But you will, Stephanie, share those current postings with me so I can share them with everyone.
Yes, I'll send you a link to them.
Okay, perfect.
And these links, people can order them or they can print it out, but the posters are huge. So it's easier for you to just order the posters. And unfortunately, unlike all the required signs, for federal or state laws, these are not available free of charge. I mean, you can cut and paste the required verbiage, but if you want to make your own sign, make sure you're using the 1-inch font to make sure that you're compliant. And the verbiage has to be word for word what it states on the website. So you can make your own, but it's just, honestly, it's going to be time consuming.
Yes. So another question that has come through is we as an organization need to update our coronavirus safety policy. What are your thoughts on anonymously surveying employees to see how everyone feels to help us determine what the new policy should be? Okay,
so I mean, are they wanting like a pandemic preparedness policy, like a business continuity?
I believe it's probably based off of, it says, do we still require masks?
So still requiring masks is completely a business decision. A private business is able to require them, and a private business is also able to not require them. Keep in mind, if your workplace becomes a hotspot of transmission, OSHA can come in and cite you for not having a safe and healthy working environment, because you know that COVID is a known threat, and so you have an obligation and responsibility to your employees. So what I would say is, if you're a business that's going to not require masks right now, that's great. You are completely free to do that. However, I would still make sure that your employees are able to social distance, because there are going to be employees that are maybe not comfortable, or just have a policy where if you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. I would still continue on having the rule in place. If you're sick, I don't care what you're sick with. I don't care if you're sick with the flu. I don't care if you're sick with a cold, strep, whatever. Do not come to work. Employees that continue to come to work when they're sick should be written up. They should be held accountable to the policy and their actions. But you absolutely should have a policy in place that if you are sick, stay at home. One thing that we push on employers is, so many employees are afraid to tell their employer that they're sick, because then they'll be sent home and they don't have a PTO policy in place. So they'll be sent home and they won't be paid for that day. So they're putting others at risk by coming to work sick and risking getting everybody else sick. So would you rather have a PTO policy in place? And obviously you can prevent abuse of that PTO policy, such as anything more than 3 absences, in 3 months is considered excessive, or whatever policy you want to put into place there. Just because you have PTO doesn't mean you can use it whenever you want. But I would still push to exploring a PTO policy. And one reason I'm telling you this is the pandemic, when they did the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, that was a trial for having a required paid leave act for small and medium-sized businesses. You're not going to find large businesses that don't already have a plan in place. Well, you may, but it's going to be very rare. So all signs are pointing to the new administration putting a plan in place where small and medium-sized employers must have a sick leave policy that is separate from their PTO policy. So they'll be required to have this with dedicated sick days. So as soon as we hear more on that, which I'm sure it will be soon, then I will make sure that that's going to be a topic to talk about. Because a lot of companies will say, well, I've already got a generous sick plan in place or whatever. That's fine. We need to make sure that yours meets the compliance of having dedicated days and the number of days, and you can't prorate them. They're available right away. There's always going to be all these rules to it, just like there was with the Family First Coronavirus Response Act.
Lots of great information, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Like always, I will be following up with this webinar with supporting documents like Stephanie has mentioned. And of course, this PowerPoint as well for you to reference or share with some leaders within your organization. A friendly reminder, our next Clear Up the Chaos is taking place the second Tuesday of July, which is July 13th. So mark your calendars. And if you're interested, go ahead and sign up for that. You can do that on our website. And as Stephanie said, she already has lots of hot topics to begin discussing with us in July. So without any further questions, I appreciate your time today and look forward to having you joining us in July. And should any questions arise, please remember that Stephanie is your new point of contact at Blakeman. So thanks so much, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Stephanie.